Hello. Some of the most satisfying reading I've had in the past several months is with really big books, and I've made separate videos about these because there's so much to say about them. Now, I would classify any book that's around 500 pages or more as a big book, but one of the challenges with longer reads is finding the motivation to actually start them because I know it's going to be such a big time commitment and there is so much stuff to read. So one of the things I like to do at the beginning of every year is to make a resolution of a list of big books that I want to get to over the course of the year. So I've picked out 5 books that I want to read in 2025, and I want to discuss why I'm so keen on these particular books. And I would love to know if you have read any of these books and if you would also recommend them, or if you want to join me in reading any of them now, if you're interested in them, or if you have any other big books that you are keen to get to in 2025. I would love to hear about that in the comments below. Now, the very first book I want to read is Thomas Mann's The Magic Mountain, which is a book that I actually intended to read last year as part of my classics reading plan because it's been a century since that novel first came out, but I didn't quite get to it. There were many other classics that I read last year and loved, but this was one of the big ones I actually didn't get to, but I have extra motivation to read it now because in February with my online book club, I'm going to be reading the Empusium, Olga Tokarczuk's most recent novel, and this novel is kind of a play upon Thomas Mann's novel, but it's kind of shorter and funnier and weirder, apparently from what I've read about it. So if you're interested in joining us in reading this, if you aren't already a member of the online book club, I'll put a link in the description below so you can find out more about it. But yeah, I'm so excited to get this because she is such a fascinating writer, and to see her spin on this classic, I want to first get to reading Thomas Mann's quite long novel that follows a young man a decade before the start of World War I as he travels to a sanatorium in Davos in Switzerland, and he just means to go there for a visit at first, but his stay keeps getting extended because he comes down with an illness, and so he stays for years and years, and so it follows his experiences and his conversations with a number of different people. And I've heard competing things about this novel, where some call it a great work of genius that explores the European bourgeoisie in the lead up to World War I, and looking at larger issues to do with life and health and sexuality and the changing political times during that period. And then I've read other reviews that say that this is like a book of essays that Thomas Mann put together on a variety of different subjects. So it'll be interesting to see where I fall when reading this book, and if I think Olga Tokarczuk sort of builds upon it. But interestingly, Thomas Mann began writing it as a novella, but then it just kept getting extended into a much bigger book. Then there is Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry, and I'm especially keen to read this novel because I made a video with my friend Bernie towards the end of last year where we talked about some of our favorite prize-winning books ever, and he cited Lonesome Dove, which won the Pulitzer Prize in 1986, and we made a deal that I would read this book if he read Solenoid by Marcia Cartaresco, which is also a very long book, quite a challenging one, and Lonesome Dove is over 800 pages long, and I've always been slightly worried about it because it's a kind of Western, or a new kind of version of a Western, and I've never been all that keen on Westerns, especially Western films, which seem just a lot of kind of macho storytelling, whereas Lonesome Dove I think gives a new kind of version of that, but in a much more kind of sensitive way, exploring emotions and following two retired Texas Rangers and a number of other people who are driving a herd of cattle from Texas, from Lonesome Dove is a border town in Texas, driving a herd of cattle from Texas to Montana and following their journey and exploring all of their different life stories. And it's meant to just be such like a epic kind of travel epic that is totally immersive and wonderful, and I have heard nothing but good things about it, and so I'm expecting to love this book as much as Bernie and many other readers have, and of course if I fall in love with it, there's also a sequel to this novel and a couple of prequels that Larry McMurtry wrote as well. He only died a few years ago, the author, I think. But yeah, I'm really excited to finally get to this. Then there is a big novel that's been sitting on my shelves ever since it was first published back in 2016, and I've been meaning to get to it for so long, and I meant to put it on my list of books from my shelves the other day, but I was enticed by so many other books, which I still need to get to. But this is a great big family epic that follows two men that are indentured servants, also known as Barkskins, who travel from France to New France in North America 300 years ago, and then it follows subsequent generations of their families. And part of the reason why they first went over to North America was to clear some trees for the new civilization that was growing there, and so it follows the continued destruction of trees and the environment over a period of hundreds of years. So as well as being an emotional family epic, it's also a story of the changing environment over time. And I've loved Annie Proulx's writing that I've read in the past, and this is her big, huge, epic novel. The Savage Detectives by Roberto Bolano, the great Chilean author, who I shamefully have never read before. So I want to take on the challenge of reading his great big epic, which is over 600 pages long. And this was first published in Spanish in 1998, and an English translation of it first came out, translated by Natasha Wimmer in 2007. But there was a recent reprint of it in this edition, which is kind of really like inspired me to finally get to it. And the story follows two men who are being hunted, and they are journeying to try to track down a famous poet, which might sound like quite a strange premise, and I think this has quite a unique structure to it, but it's also meant to be such a joy to read, and so playful in its narrative form, and exploring the human condition through this great big epic journey, which so I'm so excited to finally get to this. And finally, there is the novel Skippy Dies by Paul Murray. Now, I absolutely loved reading Paul Murray's novel The Beasting, which came out a couple years ago, and is also a very big book, but is such an immersive family story, and so juicy in its storytelling that I'm really keen to explore this earlier novel of his from 2010, which is the story of a boy at a boys' boarding school who at the very beginning of the novel dies, and it explores the events leading up to his death from the perspectives of a number of different characters, getting all of their different points of view. And that's something that Paul Murray does so well also is to explore each character's point of view from a very sympathetic way. So really understanding their perspective and way of seeing the world, and how there often is no one truth because of this, because everyone has their own version of events. So yeah, I think this will be a wonderful and immersive novel, and I know lots of readers love this book as well. Maybe not as much as The Beasting, but it is also a much beloved book, and I'd like to have read everything that Paul Murray has written. So that and these other books are ones that I really want to get to over the course of 2025. And again, I would love to hear if you have read any of these books, if you'd also recommend them. Do you think they're really worth the time of reading them for hundreds and hundreds of pages? And I'd love to know your experience of them, or if you're interested in reading them as well. So let me know about that in the comments below. But I hope you're doing well and reading good things, and I will speak to you again soon. Bye-bye.